and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation success stories. Our next Edge Computing Trends discussion explores the rapidly evolving confluence of operational technology and Internet of Things. New advances in data processing, real-time analytics, and platform efficiency have prompted new operational technology approaches at the edge. We'll now hear how the data analysis platforms are bringing data center types of operational technology benefits to the edge for real-time insights for manufacturers. To hear more about the latest capabilities in gaining unprecedented operational insights where they're needed most, please join me in welcoming our guests. We're here with Rian Lawrence. He's Vice President of Technology in the Office of the Chief Technology Officer at PTC. Welcome, Rian.
Hey, Dana. Thanks for having me.
We're glad you're with us. We're also here with Trip Partain. He's Chief Technology Officer of IoT Solutions at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Welcome, Trip.
Hey, Dana. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity.
Rian, let me start with you. What are the drivers in the market that are forcing manufacturers to seek more insights into how their operations are performing?
So, Dana, I think maybe worthwhile to just take a look at it from a market perspective before I get to the specific question. And I think we're in the midst of a fourth industrial revolution, which is really an extension of the third. And the third being it was a period of time where we used electronics and IT to automate manufacturing. And the fourth being it's this digital revolution that is basically a fusion of technology and capability that's blurring the lines between physical and digital, meaning the physical world and the digital world. And I think there's, with the influx of technology, both from a hardware perspective as well as a software perspective, customers and our customers, but manufacturing as a whole, be it in the discrete and or process industries, are finding a lot of opportunity to either save or make more money. And I think the trend is really focused on looking at this technology as a business strategy as opposed to just pure IT operations. So there's a number of examples of how our customers have leveraged technology to drive their business strategy. And I hope throughout the call we can get into some of those details. Are we at some sort of a golden age by combining what operational technology and IT have been sort of maturing over the past couple of decades? It strikes me that if we're willing to call this an industrial revolution 4.0, that it must be some kind of a big payoff. Why do we have such an opportunity right now? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of initiatives out there where, be it the Industry 4.0 or the Made in China 2025 or the Smart Factory initiative here in the U.S. Or smart manufacturing initiatives. I think leveraging democratizing process of providing value, be it with cloud capabilities, cloud compute, or edge compute, or anything in between, inherently provides a lot of options for manufacturers to solve problems that they've previously not been able to solve before. And I think If you look at it from a broader technology standpoint, in the past we've had very large monolith-like deployments of technology. Yet, if you look at it from the ISA 95 model, like level 3 or level 4, your MES deployments or large-scale ERP deployments, those were very large deployments that took many years at times. And the return on investment that our customers or that manufacturers saw would potentially pay off in many, many years. The opportunities that exist today for manufacturers, however, allows them to solve problems that they face almost immediately. So quick time to value, leveraging technology that is consumable, and then subsequently the ability to lift and drop and scale that across the enterprise makes this an era which I don't think anybody's seen before. Trip, do you agree that we're in a sort of a golden age here? It seems to me that we're able to both accommodate a great deal of diversity and heterogeneity at the edge across all sorts of endpoints and sensors, but bring that better than ever into a common platform approach where we get the best efficiency and automation that we've come to enjoy across data centers.
Yeah, I think you've got a combination of two things. One, unusually so, because typically technological advances really started either maybe in government or military or on the business side and then worked their way to consumers. But I think in this case, because of the smartphone evolution over the last 10 years, the types of sensors and chips that have been created to really drive that at the consumer level are now at such a reasonable price point that you're able to very easily apply these into these industrial areas. So to Rion's point, the price points of these technologies has gotten really low, but the capabilities are really high. So a lot of existing equipment, which might have in a factory, in a manufacturing environment that might still have 20 or 30 years of life left, can be retrofitted with sets of sensors and capabilities that weren't there at the time they were originally built or originally installed to really give you a set of insights, and then the compute capabilities that you can now deploy at the edge in the right kind of form factors with the right set of capabilities to interact in real time with those sensors really gives you a set of platforms that didn't exist even definitely not 10 years ago, maybe not even 5 years ago, and then combine that with the right software capabilities, and manufacturers and industrials can really get a set of insights into their process that was never available.
Rion, why is a partnership between an organization like PTC and HPE taking advantage of this new opportunity? It seems to me that you're all coming from fairly different vantage points, but are reinforcing one another. Tell us a little bit about the whole greater than the sum of the parts when it comes to the partnership.
Yeah, sure. So just for some context, PTC is a software vendor, and we have, over the last 30 years, really targeted our efforts at helping manufacturers either engineer their software with CAD products or PLM products by allowing them to manage the lifecycle of products, all the way through to our growth areas today of our IoT platforms or solution platforms and augmented reality capabilities. So the challenge that manufacturers face, however, is that this is not just a software problem. It really requires a robust ecosystem of hardware vendors, software vendors, ecosystem vendors such as partners such as regional SIs or global system integrators. So the reason why we find and work very closely with HPE as an alliance partner is because HPE is a leader in the space. HPE has a strong offering of compute capabilities, going from very small gateway level compute all the way through to hybrid technologies and or converged technologies. So ultimately, what our customers need is they need flexible options to deploy software at the right place at the right time across any part of their network. And we find that HPE is a strong partner on this front.
And Trip, not only do we have lower cost and higher capability when at the edge of the hardware itself, we also have this continuum of hybrid IT. We can use on-prem micro data centers, converged infrastructure. We also have private cloud and public cloud options to choose from. Why is that also accelerating the benefits for organizations like manufacturers? Why is the continuum of hybrid IT edge to cloud an important factor?
Yeah, well, I think that that flexibility is required if you look at the industrial environments where these problems are occurring that our joint customers are trying to solve. If you look at any given product line where manufacturing takes place, a lot of times it could be regional in that certain factories produce a certain set of products that then support that certain region. No two regions are the same. No two factories are the same. Even within a factory, a lot of times no two lines are the same. So there's a diversity in the way that the manufacturing takes place itself. And so you need to be able to meet that same challenge with the customers to give them those deployment options that meet those environments. Because the other thing that's very interesting about this, and this is different for someone like me coming from the IT world, is that factories don't just do enterprise deployments where every factory can take on new capabilities all at the same time. It's much more balanced with the way the products are made and working through that process. So you have to be able to have that same level of flexibility in how you can deploy the solutions to allow it to be absorbed the same way the factories do all their other types of processes. And so we've seen the need for these different levels of technology to really match up to the way in which they're going to be implemented at the different types of factories. And so that flexibility really needs to meet them where they are and allow them to get to the value much quicker and not wait for some huge enterprise rollout that, like Rion described earlier, with the old ERP or MES systems that take multiple years and then have multiple years of return. Leveraging these new hybrid flexible environments or converged environments, we can allow a single plant to deploy and get solution results much quicker, and then still work that into an enterprise deployment and kind of get the better balance between time and return.
And of course, this is got to be something that people can use. And Rian, you mentioned earlier democratization. That really jumped out at me. How are we able to take these advances in the systems, the software, the access and availability of deployments, and make that available to people who are not data scientists, but people working in the factory environment? How are we able to take the results of what the technology does and make it actionable, maybe even using things like augmented reality?
To answer your question, I think it's important to understand the notion that there's, as Tripp described, every manufacturing facility is going to be different. There are typically different line configurations, different PLC configurations, different heterogeneous systems, be it legacy systems, homegrown systems. So the ability to leverage what is there is inherently important. So what PTC has done from a strategic perspective is we effectively have two core platforms, one being our ThingWorx platform that allows you to source data and information from existing systems that are there, as well as from assets directly via the PLC or by embedding software into machines. And then the ability to contextualize and then synthesize, so to contextualize all that information and to make sense of that, and then to drive some analytic insights to your question out of the data that we have access to ultimately to be able to engage, to either orchestrate with end users, different personas, be it, the maintenance operator versus the supervisor or plant manager, et cetera, to enabling and engaging with different users yet through augmented reality. So think of there's core capabilities that allow you to derive value, but ultimately our strategy is to bring that up a level and to really target or to provide capability solutions to our end customers. And that really is in four different areas. One being, we look at it from an enterprise operational intelligence perspective. The second being intelligent asset optimization. Third, digital workforce productivity. And fourth, scalable production management. So across those four solution areas, we can apply our technology that I described earlier, from sourcing all the way through to engaging with customers and their end users, by allowing our customers to find use cases within those four solution areas that provide them a return on investment. One example of that could be leveraging augmented work instructions. So instead of an operator going through a maintenance procedure by opening a folder of hundreds of pages of instructions, leverage new technology like augmented reality to really guide the operator in process and in situ in terms of how to do something. So there's many use cases across those four solution areas, of which really leverages the core capabilities across both the IoT platform, ThingWorx, as well as the augmented reality platform, Vuforia.
And Tripp, it sounds as if we're taking sort of the best of what people can do and the best of what systems and analytics can do, moving it from batch to real time, and then empowering people in ways that we hadn't done before. We also, of course, have these real-time location-based services, so we can tell where things and people are in new ways. Are we really at the point where we're combining the best of cognitive human capabilities and machine capabilities?
Yeah, I don't know if we've gotten to the best yet, probably the best of what we've had so far. So I still think as we continue to evolve technologies and continue to look at new ways or look at problems in different ways with different technologies, that it'll continue to evolve. I do think we are getting to the newest sweet spot, if you will, of putting the two together and really being able to drive advancements forward. And one of the things that's critical about that, it has to do with where our current workforce is. I mean, a number of manufacturers that I talk to, and I've heard similar from PTC's customers and our joint customers, is you're at a tipping point in terms of the current talent pool, those that are currently employed, and how many of them are getting close to retirement age. And then this next generation that's coming in that it's not going to have the same longevity and the same skill set. So I think having these newer technologies and bringing these pieces together, it's not only a newer matchup based on the newer technologies we have, but it also is really better suited for the type of worker that's going to be carrying these activities forward. Manufacturing is not going away, but it's going to be a very different generation of factory worker, and those types of individuals and the types of technologies, one, that they're used to, two, that are now available available to really enhance that job. So I think we're really starting to see all of those pieces come together. And that's where both IoT solutions, but even especially augmented reality solutions like PTC Vuforia really come into play.
Rian, we might only be scratching the surface. So what is the potential here? To what degree? And I know in a larger manufacturing environment, only small iterative improvements can make a big impact on the economics, on the bottom line. What sort of future improvement category or categorical value are we looking at here? If we're only scratching the surface, to what degree do we actually have an opportunity to make manufacturing more efficient, more productive, more economically powerful?
So I think if you look at it from the angle that Trip just referred to, there's a number of increasing pressures in really the industrial markets that I think we're seeing across the board, be it the worker skill gap or the fact that products are becoming more complex and workspaces are becoming more complex. There's increasing customer demands and expectations, so expectations of immediacy, and I think the markets are just becoming more fiercely competitive, and certainly in some cases, some of those marketplaces are shifting. So I think if you leverage capabilities like augmented reality, which you could provide augmented 3D work instructions or expert guidance or remote assistance, training and demonstrations, that's one area. And I think if you combine that, to Trip's point, with the IoT capabilities, I think you can look at improvements such as reducing work in process material, and we've seen customers between the 15 and 30% range, certainly reducing unplanned downtime, which is a very common use case that we see manufacturers target, so up to around 30%. So reducing energy consumption by the mid 3 to 7%, and those numbers that I just referenced would be an example of a very large chip manufacturer that is a customer of PTC's, or as an example, generally looking at improving productivity by 20 and 30%. And, ultimately, I think it really focuses on leveraging this technology in a meaningful way to get iterative improvements. And then once you have an improvement that you can scale across the enterprise, to be able to do that very, very rapidly. And then as you're doing that, there's more and more use cases, of which ideally multiple use cases become part of a solution. So as the rollout occurs, there are areas of opportunity, but you're doing that very, very rapidly to get that return on investment.
Yeah, well, that's super impressive. Those are numbers that would mean an awful lot to a lot of companies. Let's perhaps look at some examples. Maybe you can name them. Maybe you could just describe the use case. There were several solution sets, Rian, that you referred to. Do we have any sort of concrete examples we can look to help illustrate how those types of productivity benefits actually come about?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a joint customer, in fact, between HPE and PTC that focuses on manufacturing and distributing reusable food packaging containers, so recyclable, of course. The company is called Cube Manufacturing, and their initial use case that they targeted was really predictive maintenance. So ultimately, their goal is to have the equipment notify them when attention is needed. So that allows them to really service what they need to when they need to, and really focus on reducing unplanned downtime. So in this particular example, there were a number of technologies at play across both of our two companies. Just from memory, I think the HPE Nimble storage capability and HPE Synergy technology was leveraged, as well as a whole variety of Aruba switches and wireless access points, as well as PTC's ThingWorx solution platform. So this is, of course, just a specific use case for Cube packaging, but ultimately all of that was pulled together through an ecosystem partner, Callisto, who we both work very closely together with. And on top of that, the maturity of their use case extended into not just the assets that they were monitoring, but they were also looking at some of the peripheral equipment that may impact their operations. Things like looking at cooling and air systems, or trying to avoid anything that could cause their injection molding equipment and plants to shut down through external forces. So that's a solution that's actively being rolled out, and is certainly an example of taking a specific use case that may fall into one of those solution areas, and then starting small and then scaling across the enterprise.
Trip, how about you? Any examples or use cases that come to your mind that really illustrate the potential impact here?
Yeah, so another joint customer that comes to mind, and we actually are able, they are they're located in Houston. It's Texmark Petrochemical. They're a joint customer. They use a number of HPE solutions, including the HPE Edge line, the Edge Center, which is our micro data center you mentioned earlier. They're also using PTC ThingWorx, and I believe PTC Kepware, among a number of other solutions. And so they started, again, very similar with condition monitoring. And so they have very large pumps that are critical to the operation as they're moving the chemicals and the fluids in various stages around within their plant for the refining process. So being able to monitor those in real time, be able to predict potential failures before they happen, being able to use a combination of live data and algorithms to predict wear and tear and when the optimal time to make replacements are so that you minimize the downtime. That was the initial use case that we implemented there together. So one of the advantages we have actually is when customers come and visit our IoT lab in Houston from an HPE standpoint, not only do they see our joint solutions there in the lab, but we can actually take them out to the Texmark location, and Texmark will host and allow you to see these technologies in real time working at their facility. And so similar, as Rian mentioned earlier, we started with condition monitoring, and then now it's moved into additional use cases, whether it's mechanical integrity, video as a sensor, and then the latest ones have been employee safety related use cases. So we started out with condition monitoring. We proved that out, got that technology working. Then you take that framework you've put together, including both best-in-class hardware and software, and then you can continue to build and evolve on top of that to continue to solve expanded problems. And so Texmark's been a great joint customer for us.
Rian, when organizations hear about these technologies and the opportunity for some very significant productivity benefits, when they understand that more and more of their organization is going to be data-driven and these real-time analysis benefits can be delivered to people in their actionable context, perhaps using such things as AR, what should they be doing now to get ready? Recognizing that the potential is there, sometimes it takes small steps to get to a bigger place to take advantage of it. But how do you get into the mindset and perhaps also into the data-driven mindset to take advantage of these capabilities? What do you advise people to do to get ready to take advantage of these?
So one of the things we've, at least I've noticed over the last 5 to 8 years working with ThingWorx has been there was the initial trend of looking at the technology and just attempting to implement the technology based on the overall capabilities that were offered versus looking at specific use cases that could provide real business value and working backwards from the business value. So my recommendation would be to really target use cases that could provide quick time to value and then apply the technology in a way that allows you to start small and then iterate from there versus trying to prove your return on investment based on just the core technology capabilities. So ultimately, I think understanding the business challenges and understanding how you can grow your top line or your bottom line, and then working backwards from there and starting small by looking at a plant or operations within a plant, and then applying the technology across people. So how do you create a smart connected people strategy? How do you apply technology in terms of the process? And then, ultimately, how do you apply technology relative to the actual machines within that process in a way that's relevant to the use case that's going to drive some return on investment?
And Trip, last question to you, and a similar question. What should the IT organization be thinking? Because now they're tasked with maintaining systems that are across that continuum of cloud to edge, that are seeing micro data centers at the edge. They're doing combination of data-driven analytics and software that leads to newer interfaces like AR. How should the IT organization be perhaps preparing itself to take what it does right to any nook and cranny in almost any manufacturing environment?
And it's everything you said, and then it's one more step, and it's doing it in a place where typically IT has had little or no involvement, meaning in most organizations, not all, but I would say most industrial and manufacturer organizations, as we really go in and start having conversations, IT really has it's stopped in the data center, in the back end. Now, there's lots of technology in the manufacturing side, but it's typically not involving the IT department. So I think one of the first steps is to really get educated on what some of these newer edge technologies are and how they fit into the overall architecture, so that there's the ability for them to have the existing support frameworks and those models in place that are instantly usable. But then, really having to go and understand, working with the business side and framing up the problems they're trying to solve, very similar to what Rian mentioned earlier, and then being able to say, hey, here's the types of technologies we can apply to this that you guys haven't necessarily looked at before, and here's the standardization we can help bring to it so that we don't end up with something completely different in every factory, which then runs up your overall cost to support and run it going forward. But it's good. It's a new world. They're really going to have to spend much more time with the part of a business where they've probably spent the least amount of time, just because of the way things have normally been segmented up. So, the IT needs to get involved as early as possible in understanding what those business challenges are and getting educated on these newer IoT and AR and VR and edge-based solutions that become these extension points of traditional technology that can really are pointed at being able to help go solve these new types of problems.
Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been discussing the rapidly evolving confluence of operational technology and the Internet of Things. And we've learned how data processing, real-time analytics, and platform efficiency are all prompting new operational technology approaches at the very edge of manufacturing. And so please join me now in thanking our guests. We've been here with Rian Lawrence, Vice President of Technology in the Office of the CTO at PTC. Thank you so much, Rian.
Great. Thanks for having me, Dana. It was a pleasure.
And we've also been joined by Trip Partain, Chief Technology Officer of IoT Solutions at HPE. Thank you so much, Trip.
Enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation Success Story discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community, and do come back next time.